two-step equations, okay? Alright, so first, I want you to look at these problems. I want you to review. This is a copy of your homework from last night. Do you remember doing the homework last night? Okay, I want you to review some of these questions in a group and go over one of them, and then we will discuss the answers, okay? So let's look at these questions from last night. Okay? Alright. Now here are the answers. Okay? And these are called one-step equations, right? Okay, so these are your equations, and these are your answers. Before we move on today, we want to go over some vocabulary. Okay? So let's look at the first vocabulary word that we worked on from one-step equations was a variable. A variable, remember, is any symbol that represents a quantity. And in one of your problems last night from homework, it was 7a equals negative 42. And it says a is a variable. Okay? The second vocabulary word before we move on to two-step equations is an integer. Any positive or negative whole number. Okay? Integer. And that same equation from last night's homework, it's 7a equals negative 42, and 7 and negative 42 are your integers. Okay? So, during today's lesson, our objective is that we'll be able to identify integers and variables in a two-step equation. We're moving forward now. From last night, you learned one-step equations. We're going to build on what you know and move to two-step equations. And your objective today will be identifying integers and variables in a two-step equation and solve for the variable with 80% accuracy. Okay? So here's one example that we're going to start with. So first, here's a two-step equation. Notice it has the 5, which is a what? An integer. The x, the variable. We have a second integer, positive 12. Okay, so our first step. Since 12 is a positive integer, we want to put a negative integer with it in order to move it over to the other side of the equal sign. So we have a positive 12, we subtract 12. Positive integer, negative integer. Remember, the equal sign is like a mirror. So we add negative 12 to one side, we have to do exactly the same thing to this side. Negative 12. So that means your next slide is 5x equals 60. Because 72, a positive 72 integer, and a negative 12 is 60. Okay? Is everyone with me? Alright. Then, here we're multiplying. So the opposite of multiplying, the 5 and the x, right, good Brianna, is divided by 5. So if we do it on one side, it's a mirror. So we need to do it on the other side of the equal sign, right? We divide by 5, we have to divide by 5 to 60. Cross out the 5's, 60 divided by 5. X, right, good. X equals 12. So x is our variable. One of our vocabulary words, variable. X equals 12. Okay. Now before we break into groups to do our technology lesson, we're going to close it up with our closure, okay? Let's look at unknowns. Our variable is an unknown. So something you might not know when you go out over the weekend with your friends. Let's look at this. Your friends and you pay for tickets to the movies, and you need to determine how much money you can spend on snacks. What you know, whether you know it or not, that's a two-step equation with a variable. Okay? How much money you have left over for snacks is a variable. You don't know what that is. So that's a good way to remember variable. It's something unknown. You don't know what it is. Also, opposite functions. Let's look at hot and cold. You have hot, what's the opposite? Cold. Rich, what's the opposite? Poor. Okay, adding is a positive number. My opposite is subtracting, negative number. When I'm multiplying, the opposite is division. Okay? So to close it up today, let's remember unknowns are like variables, like the cost for your snacks, and opposite functions, just like hot and cold, adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So now we're going to do technology. Get into partners, but I don't want you to look like this, okay? I don't want you to look mad, like this guy. So first, I want you to get into partners, then I want you to create a PowerPoint, just like I did here, explaining to me two-step equations. Then, each step, I want you to talk to your partner about. Tell your partner, this is what we're doing. This is why I'm doing it. Okay? So you say, I want to put a minus 20. Why? Why, Alfredo? Tell your partner. Tell him why. And then I'll call you up, partner by partner, to come to my desk, and we'll review your presentation to see where you went right and where you went wrong. Okay? So let's go ahead and get your laptops.